Richard von Schaukal was an Austrian poet. He was born in 1874 in Brno, a son of merchant Franz Schaukal and Wilhelmina Seidel, and studied legal theory in Vienna. In 1899 he married Fanny Huckel. Between 1903 and 1911 he held various posts in the state, being Ministerialsekretär, Sektionsrat, and Ministerialrat. He was raised to the status of nobility in 1918 by Emperor Charles II, in the very last year of the existence of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy. That same year he left the service and began to work as a poet, critic, and translator. He died in 1942 in Vienna. He wrote many poems, but we'll be covering one of his early works of prose, the 1902 Von Tod zu Tod und andere kleine Geschichten, From Death to Death and Other Small Stories. Schaukal wrote many of these stories very brief indeed. The first three are so brief and so similar, I thought they were the same story and not three different ones. I will lay out the more substantial ones first. Gypsy music has old Rittmeister Count Brandenburg relate how a friend of his, Bela von Centegorge, was made by a fortune teller and her associates to give them more and more money until he had to shoot himself. A car trip into the neighborhood has a man and his wife go on such a trip, but then her door isn't quite closed and she falls out and smashes her head into pieces. Family bonds has a man's body found in the snow, holding his own severed legs, and it turns out the old drunkard's son strangled him, cut off his legs, and threw him out into the snow, while still alive, with the agreement of his mother. In The Dog, a man is trying to feed his dog a bit of his morning bun dipped in milk, and because the dog won't eat it, he has the very natural reaction of strangling it. A game of cards as a man invites his friends to a meal and a game of cards. Just as the lot of them have calmed down after an argument, a bust of Zeus falls on his head and kills him. In A Woman's Ruse, a princess ruins a man's marriage for daring to talk about her own extramarital affairs. An occurrence has two brothers observe the soldiers stationed in their house, but then one is spooked and shoots his brother to death. The terrible consequences of a dinner speech has another cheery gathering end in people throwing books at each other and a man choking to death on a bone. Segment is a rather tedious affair, of a bunch of aristocrats sitting about and vaguely blathering about a woman's potential marital infidelity. The farce concerning the star Hieronymus has a star named Hieronymus fall from heaven and be picked up by a man who has to hide it from his wife, who wants to smash it to pieces due to her terrible nature. The Navratil family concerns a family whose whole business is pretending to have gotten run over and extorting money from unwary motorists. A sleep drought has a man become an utter ass due to insomnia. Nothing some wine won't fix though. On the way home, a man tells a princess and her husband how he once got left behind with the pretty daughter of an old rich woman. A conversation concerns a man who admits the worst moment of his life was him missing waking up on time during his service in the army. In From Death to Death, the last Count von Turm-Hochegg, Ferdinand Maria Eugen Philipp, is dying alone after being told he will not live to see the spring. But then his soul slips into the body of a newborn also named Ferdinand. He never fits into his surroundings, is much smarter than all his schoolfellows, and ends up being a substitute teacher and dying an early death. Some of these stories have sudden grim turns, but many of them are too brief, and some have content that doesn't even fill a whole page. It is sad that Segment is one of the longer ones, and the murdering is only sporadic.